Okay, welcome everybody to the second in the series of chats with JMI leadership. And you're joining us, well, me in particular, from the Upper West Side of Manhattan in my tiny little apartment. I've been here 37 years. And so please excuse noise. Could be the sounds of sirens and horns and things. That's just typical of New York. And maybe it's appropriate that I'm in this little tiny apartment talking to Paula because Paula is one of the few people who's actually visited and seen this apartment. Other
I
than the
have.
many years ago, many students used to come in and out of. I used to teach here before kids, and
Mm.
so this tiny little apartment is very typical of the way New Yorkers live, and maybe people in cities like Paris too. So it's typical that this is the bedroom. It's also my little space. It's also my wife's writing space behind me. It's, the dog's room and everything like that. And, the kids were in the other room. Anyway, Paula, welcome. Paula Girvan
I,
is the head of school at Jazz Music Institute. And it's so fantastic, Paula, to talk to you like this. Um,
yeah,
and the reason is because, in full transparency here, I knew Paula, I think, since about 1980. I think I met you in about 1980. I was trying to
you
sort of
did.
think how far back that was. So,
Yeah,
and
wow.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen you much over that time. So,
No,
so
I
much
was
has
7 years
happened.
old.
So much has happened in your life since then. And so
Yeah.
I, I think I might begin by just, I don't know, just getting you to tell me about maybe we'll start with musical beginnings, but of course, musical beginnings and life beginnings usually work hand in hand.
That's right. Yeah, so I was 7 years old when you met me, but I think the uh, things I like to tell people was the night I was born, Buddy Rich was playing in Sydney. And my father was just like, can you hurry up and have this baby so I can get to the concert? Because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for me,
He had his
as well as
priorities
me.
right, didn't he?
So, yeah, that was the start of my life, basically.
Wow. In the shadow of
Being
Buddy Rich. Well,
That's right, exactly. And it's funny because I hear, you hear all the stories about Buddy Rich. But for me personally, I always hear the name and I find it really endearing. Like, it has a special place in my heart. And yeah, so that's where it started. And
wow.
I'm still here, loving jazz, loving music. Yeah, my life is pretty much filled with that. Yeah.
Your house was filled with music, but what prompted you to what in particular? I know, I didn't grow up necessarily in a house full of music and especially jazz, so it came from
Mm.
me. But for you, what was it that really prompted you to go, I want to do that, you know?
Oh, to be honest, I can't remember. I just loved music. I loved being because the house was always filled with musicians and artists. I was just like, yeah, that's where I'm going to go. Growing up as a teenager, I had a couple of jobs working on cash registers and so forth, and I was like, this is not going to be my life. I'm doing this to basically get out of here. So yeah, I still
It,
see some of the people, they still work in those supermarkets and they're like, "You still doing your music?" And I'm like, oh yeah, I am. That's all,
wow.
yeah. So I think it was good to sort of have some, regular jobs just to confirm what I wanted to really do. Yeah.
So on that note, just for people out there who may be just thinking about beginning to play music,
Mm.
whatever age, young, old, in between, doesn't matter. Um, what were your first, do you remember the first kind of gigs you did and how you felt and kind of where they might
Hmm.
have been and at that time?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can remember. I mean, I came up through, we're lucky in Brisbane. There's we have a music program that starts in primary school. So you can start, instruments through the school program all the way through to high school. But it was in high school I started doing professional work and professional gigs. And a lot of that was more corporate work, of course, learning cover tunes and so forth. And yeah, I just loved it. Even the extra long hours, being there 2 hours before you had to be there, and the
Mhm.
setup and the pack down, yeah.
Was that on piano or piano keyboard or whatever?
Yeah, piano keyboards. Yeah, yeah,
Were
yeah.
there
So
any other instruments that you played sort of around that time? And then was it always piano that you had your sights
yeah,
on?
well, I started on piano. Oh, maybe I was 4 or 5 with Julie Spithill.
I
You'd remember
remember
Julie?
Julie for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And then we moved to Brisbane and I started clarinet in the school program, in the band program, moved over to tenor saxophone, also played bass clarinet for a while, and kept piano going all the way through. And it was a good experience to learn wind instruments. I think that's helped me as a piano player as well with phrasing, articulation, etc. Um, but yeah, when I got to the end of high school, I was like, you know, these instruments aren't me. They're not my voice. And so I went back to the piano and got really serious about it.
Mm.
Yeah.
For everyone out there, Paul is mentioning phrasing and all of that kind of stuff. And I came about it the other way. I was maybe I think I always wanted to play the piano, but it took me a while. But
Mm,
um, when you talk about phrasing, Paula, it's kind of interesting that when you play, I hear you
mm,
breathe. So that
yeah,
means you have to stop. Or those of us playing wind instruments, we have to not just keep playing endless lines.
that's right.
We just can't possibly do that on the piano. You can roll
Play
along.
forever.
So
Yep.
I do hear that in your playing that you leave gaps and spaces, and as probably you will attest, when you hear great
Mm,
solos or when you're playing, the space is important as the noise that you're making. So
that's
it actually
right.
commands the attention of an audience, and it's commanded me when I listen to you too. It's like,
Oh, thank you.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
it actually commands you to listen, doesn't it, when you leave those
Hmm.
spaces? Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
that's
probably
right.
telling your students that all the time, or this,
Always.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
It's like a conversation, and a
yes,
conversation with yourself when
yes,
when you're playing piano. Yeah.
yes.
Or any instrument. Yeah.
When I visited in 2019, I was fortunate to sit in on the sessions that the instructors do at Jazz Music Institute, where uh, the sessions where the students have to, get it all together as a band leader, as a
Hmm.
side person, and get their material together, arrange it, perform it, present it, and they perform in front of not just the instructors but the other students. And I found it more than endearing to sit in
Yeah.
and watch these sessions and to listen to what you had to say to them. It was it was quite a treat because you're listening to so much of what they're doing. I was the stranger in the room. You have watched all of these people work on stuff. You remember what they were like when they first came in and how scared they were, or how
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I've been that person too. That one that's afraid to do things and then eventually just overcome that fear and played. And then of course there's people who really don't care. They get up and just
Yeah.
play.
That's
But
right. Yeah.
it was such a treat to watch you do that, and the other stuff too, but in particular you, because what I heard was something kind of unique in a school. And maybe it's to do
Hmm.
with the way that you run the school, but I felt that there was a special kind of nurturing. You really knew them, they really knew you. And
Yeah.
can you speak a little bit about just that kind of experience that you've had at Jazz Music Institute? Because you've been doing it a long time.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah. I've been doing it for 21 years now. I've been teaching for 30 years, but 21 years full time lecturing in jazz. The class you're talking about is what we call a concert practice class. So basically, yeah, it's a practice class. So we don't expect perfection ever. And I don't think we should ever expect perfection, especially with this music. I think I've had various experiences with educators over the years, especially as a young 20-year-old woman. And I think it's just important to make students feel comfortable hearing feedback. So, you know, that class is all about giving them feedback and making them aware this is what we're going to talk to you about your playing and your performing, and don't see it as that we're coming at you and we're getting angry with you or we're annoyed with you, but more of a place of we want you to be better, and all I want to do is extract the best out of the students that I can possibly do. The school is relatively small. Generally, it's a maximum of 80 students. So you do get to know them. And, they get nicknames and they give me nicknames. And, it's all a lovely, friendly environment. And I think that's what we really try to encourage, because when you feel comfortable and you feel happy and you feel part of a scene, you start to flourish. Well, you do flourish. And I've seen that so many times.
Yes.
I see students come in and they're so scared to improvise. They don't want to take their eyes off the page. And then by the time they're finished, they're incredible. They're absolutely, they sound like Bill Evans or whoever it is that they want to sound like. And most importantly, they have their own voice as well. So, yeah. So I think that's, taking the fear out of playing is, that's a really big thing to do. Yeah.
I can attest to that because I sat in on several sessions, different years, and I noticed that too. And that nurturing, I could tell they were less afraid to um, to express themselves. Um,
Yeah.
there's famous saying around in sort of the theater world, and I don't know, and other artistic mediums as well. The advice being, express, don't impress. And
Mm,
I feel that that's what I heard. I heard people expressing themselves. They weren't trying to impress. Nobody knew who I was, so that was good.
mm,
They weren't trying to impress me, the audience. They were expressing themselves, and
yeah.
um, I I enjoyed it so much. I made so many notes myself because I was thinking, "Oh, I do that. Oh, I do that. I could learn from that." So never stops that kind of
Yeah.
learning. And I did. I wrote copious notes. I remember reading about it later, thinking,
Yeah.
I've been doing this a long time, and I never thought of that.
Yeah.
And it came from the students sometimes too. It was
Yeah.
just it prompted something that I heard that was, ooh, maybe lacking. Usually something that was really good, because that's my thing is I usually focus on what's best in people. So, and that's what I heard you guys do. You were focusing
Yeah.
on the best in them.
Yeah. That's right. I think it was years ago I heard a quote, and that was teachers are friends who are willing to tell you the truth. And, I try, I sometimes forget to say that to the students. I'll try and remember we've got orientation next week to remind them about that. But once you get across to them that we're trying to make you better, trying to help you, and they accept it, they don't fight it, then it's a really smooth ride. And to watch, their journey from when they've started the course to when they graduate is really quite incredible. You know, yeah,
Yes. I wish I could be there, and it's, to see that, to witness that,
yeah,
and maybe I will one of these days. But one of the things that I would like to it prompted me to think of something to ask you right now. to the
Mm,
people out who are watching this who are have thought about Jazz Music Institute. Maybe they've thought about jazz. Maybe they come from a completely different music genre. Maybe they're new to any music or whatever. And so
mm.
perhaps a good question to you is not just as a pianist, but to singers and other musicians too, what they might consider getting together before they think about coming to JMI to, to apply or to come and, well, probably come and watch if they live in Brisbane, come and watch, some of the other students is probably a good suggestion. But if
Yeah.
they're thinking about visiting the site and having, I know you've got wonderful prompt videos for people, things for them
Mhm.
to prepare for auditions and things. But what about the people who are not quite at that stage yet? What kinds of things do you think would be valuable for them to start to do in relation to jazz?
Okay. Um, that's a really interesting question. I would recommend those sorts of students to whatever instrument they play to investigate, you know, um, other people that play that instrument, the great recording artists, the great jazz artists, find somebody that they really like. Yeah, you usually find, lots of alto saxophone players will start with Charlie Parker, which is great. That is awesome. And just find an artist and build a playlist of just that artist and really immerse yourself in that one person and listen because we can all learn the techniques of jazz and improvisation, but the expression comes from within and the feel, time feel, rhythmic feel, groove, that comes from within as well. I mean, you can teach that, of course, but we all have our own natural rhythms because of our heartbeat. So if you can find an artist, an instrumentalist, or a vocalist, and you go, I really love what they do, and immerse yourself with them and their music, then you'll start to feel that groove, that
That's
sound.
that's the best advice ever, in my view. It's
Yeah.
thanks for that, Paula. And if anyone's
Yeah,
listening,
you're welcome. Yeah.
take this take this as a precious gem because so much music in music schools is taught first. I have several friends who sort of teach in the system who are very, very good musicians and very good teachers, and they notice other students and the product of other teachers' influence, where they've got their heads immersed in the sheet music and they're taught how to read first, and
Mm-hmm.
but very few are taught how to listen. So this is perhaps it's probably the most precious thing that you'll hear in this chat with Paula today is this
Yeah.
idea of listening. I was fortunate. It didn't feel like that when I was young, but I started listening and then learned to read. I started on the bandstand, made every mistake you could possibly make, and then
Yep.
went home
Yep.
and tried to sort of figure it out. But what it required me to do was listen really hard and then copy. It made
Mm-hmm.
me sing, even though I was not a singer. It made me sing lines and hear lines in such a way that I probably wouldn't have done had I
That's right.
been learning, because I started on clarinet and I learned classical things and, eventually skills that work incredibly well in other environments, other arts too.
Absolutely. Yeah, most definitely.
Let me see. I've got questions again, but I'm sort of in different orders. Oh, here's a, probably a question that I could have you talk about for the entire, this entire chat. So in 1999, I asked a wonderful pianist, Sarah Jane Sion, to play on my album, and Sarah
Hmm.
played on my album. So this was 1999, and um, it wasn't for any other reason that I just loved her playing and I loved who she was and all of that kind of stuff. And um, even back then, 1999, it was very rare to see women playing jazz. Unless
Hmm.
they were the band leaders, um, there were a few who are, in an ensemble. But even Sarah said to me later on, she said, you know, thanks for hiring me. It was, I said, Sarah, you just played so great. And interestingly enough, that was 25 years ago for me. Sarah and I have just actually reconnected recently. And, here's a wonderful pianist, Sarah Sion, Cion. Check her out. Just wonderful
Yeah.
player. But she's sort of back on the scene also. And she took time away, like me, to raise a family and, to do sort of necessary things in life. But
Mm.
it occurred to me that it's wonderful to see women on your faculty, and I know you've had many over the time, but I still see it as a minority after all of these years. I see, and
Yeah.
that's wonderful. I can't wait to be sort of fully back on the scene again, playing again, and I will purposely seek out some of those wonderful, the Kate Davises on bass, some of those people. I will purposely seek them out. Of course, I've been
Mhm.
sitting in and around town again, and still what I see is predominantly a male environment. A female singer will get up, and that's
Yeah.
usually still after all of these years. However, when I
Yeah.
look on JMI and I look at all the concerts, I see more women. I see them featured on concerts and
Mm.
ensembles in the student body. It's heartening to me because
Yeah.
I'm I'm older. I come from, I was a '60s kid, so um, there were hardly any women other than the famous singers. But
Yeah.
I'll shut up for a while because I'd love to hear your viewpoint on all of this, Paula.
Yeah. Well, it is one of those things. It's still a bit of a man's world out there. I think it's what's difficult for my opinion anyway. I think what's difficult for a lot of female musicians is that fear of making a mistake, that fear of being laughed at, not being part of the crew. So that I think that's what that turns a lot of women off becoming performers, and they'll go into the teaching world. Just that fear of, yeah, as I said, making mistakes and not being good enough. Um, but I see it slowly turning. I'm hoping, especially in Brisbane, we're seeing a lot more female instrumentalists, and they stay performing. They'll go into a teaching job, of course, they need that regular income, but they stay performing regularly, which is great. And I think that's testament to Brisbane is a small city, it's like 2.5 million people. Um, and I like to think we're encouraging as well. We've got, yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, we'll just have to keep, just and like the things that I do at the school as well is like I just won't sort if I see a little kind of boys club starting, I'm a mum of two boys, so I know how to break that up pretty quickly without any holes in walls, so to speak. But yeah, I think it's just encouraging young females to keep going, and what they're doing is a good thing. And also encouraging young men to be inclusive as well, which I do believe that's changing as well. You know,
I do too.
having been around the scene all my life, um, yeah, I think we're starting to see some turns happening, which is really good.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
I happen to be a parent of boy-girl twins, and so
yeah,
we are sort of we're agnostic here. It's a very balanced household. That we've got strong women in our household, and
yeah.
in another place, I work a lot in the world of TV, and what I've noticed now is almost a predominance of women. I organized an
Mm,
event the other night, and it was about 120 people in the room, and I could say that three-quarters of the attendees were women, and it's in the TV world, I think in documentary especially, there are a lot of voices, and in the news world here, there are a lot of voices. In children's programming, there's definitely a predominance of women, which I'm very happy about, in the storytelling and all of that side of things. So I think, despite the recent events in the world, I don't think
yeah,
it's going to change, no matter how much the white
mm,
male wants to think it will. It won't,
mm,
because it won't take
mm.
long for it to be completely outvoted and and
That's
outdone.
right.
Um,
Yeah,
but I'm pleased to hear that. And if you're watching this and you are feeling a bit like you don't have support, Paula is actually easy to get hold of. You can just email her. If you're living in a different country, if you're living in a different part of the world and you're hearing this and you're thinking, I don't feel that where I am,
yeah,
and you feel like you need support. Well, JMI is a really good place, but Paula in particular is a real good resource for you, no matter where you live. Or come to me, and my
that's
wife and
it.
daughter will also help you too. I mean, they've watched me be inclusive for a long time, and so they know what that actually should look like too, in terms
Yeah,
of
that's
community
it.
groups. So I
Yeah,
just wanted to
I think
mention that.
that, yeah, I think also my mother was a very strong role model. And yeah, she taught all of us kids to be strong, independent thinkers,
I
and be
knew your mom
inclusive.
well. She really
You did,
was.
you did,
Yes.
yes, that's right, bless her. Yeah, so, and I think in my own family situation, I've got the husband, the two boys, and even the dog. When he was here, he was a boy, and I was surrounded by all of this testosterone, and I'm like, go to work, and I'm latch onto the girls literally, and like, okay, without telling them, I was just like, I'm just making you the best that you can possibly be, you know. So yeah,
Mm.
I think
And we live in such a diverse world now too. So,
that's
for
right.
anyone who's feeling
Yeah,
that, I wonder if JMI would, welcome me. Of course, you can probably tell
absolutely.
just by listening to Paula that
Yeah,
it's a real safe place for you to express, to not impress, but to express.
that's right.
So,
Yeah.
Paula, just on a musical, personal note, what are some of the things that you are working on? Can you share, just because we are always evolving, we're always learning, there's always something that we want to learn, jazz
Yeah.
musicians in particular. So is there something that you happen to be working on now that you've always wanted to do better, or you've never tried yet?
Um, uh, I see myself as always a work in progress. I'm always working on something. Um, I'm in a couple of different playing situations at the moment, which I play Hammond organ in. And I must admit, I fell in love with the Hammond organ when I was a teenager, like just hearing it through, pop music and so forth, and then discovering Jimmy Smith and so forth. And so I've got myself a little Hammond SK1 with the drawbars,
Ooh.
and I love it because it's just, it's a keyboard, and I understand all of that, but then there's all these other sounds that you can get out of it with all the overtones from the drawbars. So I've been oh no, are you still there?
I'm still here, don't worry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, something just went on my computer, of
Oh,
course.
as
There
it
we go.
will.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, just investigating overtones and what they do and all the different sounds, and then checking out what Larry Young was doing as an organist, because he's got
Oh,
incredible
yeah.
stuff going. But also like some of the organists from the 70s, names have gone from me now, of course, but yeah, that's what I've been sort of investigating, as well as, still working on my piano chops. And I'm in total love with Bill Charlotte as a piano player right now.
Aren't we
So,
all?
oh, I know, I know. I have met him, and he was just as beautiful as a human being, as a piano player. So yeah, just working on all of that. I still want to sound like me. I think that's really important, but I still have to acknowledge what's come before me and respect that and learn it well. Don't just sort of tiptoe through it, deep dive into it, which I've done. I spent a period of time where all I listened to was Red Garland. And then I moved to all I listened to is Wynton Kelly, Bill Evans, all the greats. And I think that's really important. Yeah.
I catching on to what you said about sounding like me. I think that's another very important point for anybody watching this. That as you age, I think you become more and more of you. And I think
Mm.
my philosophy on all this is that when you were young, all of this was there, and all JMI teachers are doing, and musical situations that you get put into, thrown into, thrust
Mm.
into, are about uncovering what's already there. And
That's right.
I've actually felt more and more of that as I've aged. That, oh, okay, this is cool. More and more of me is coming out with not a lot of effort, because it was always there.
That's
It's,
right.
I can hear what you're saying too, is that you're going, you're going to what you like. It's kind of almost simple, isn't it? I
Yeah.
like this, I would like to do
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
infusing it into your playing. Just to invoke Duke Ellington again, I always remember, because I did an amazing Duke Ellington course with David Berger at Manhattan School about Ellington, and the second semester was about his extended work. So it was all of the
Mhm.
Queen's Suite and you know,
Yeah.
uh, the one on Shakespeare. I'm forgetting exactly
Oh,
what
Death
they
of
were.
Anatomy. Yeah.
Yes, and it's
Yeah.
um, to he doesn't sound like, it's not Asian, it's not,
Mm.
it's the sonnets and things like that, but he sort of dips a toe into all of these sort of different worlds and still sounds, it's still the Duke Ellington band, it's still the
Yeah.
same soloists
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
And I think to our little discussion earlier about other genres and things, taking I know I've done this too. I've taken my jazz stuff really and used it on sessions with singer-songwriters and
Yeah.
people in other genres, and uh, I love it. I love that it's me first going into
That's
these
it.
other situations.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
very cool, Paul. I'm glad you took us in this direction.
Yeah. No, that's good. Because, I mean, the students, they come in, they do a, music degree, could take them 3 to 4 years. I'm constantly telling them, this is for life. Don't think you're going to learn everything in these 3 years, and then you're done. Magic fairy dust sprinkled, and you're all of a sudden amazing. This is for life.
Yes.
And I still go back to some of the notes that I got when I first studied in 1991. And I'm like, oh my God, mind blowing. I get it now. And that was a long time ago.
Yes.
And
Yes.
even you and I have both done study with Gary Dial, and I'll go back to his notes. And for me, I started 10 years ago, finished a few years ago, but it still blows me away. It's like, and sometimes it's the most simplest thing as well.
It it really is. And Gary was a student of Charlie Bernakis for 38 years until Charlie
Yeah.
passed away. And Gary literally inherited all of the
Mm.
Charlie Bernakis estate music. So when you get things from Gary, quite often it's Charlie Bernakis's little handwritten notes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I know several people who have them, including the pianist I mentioned, Sarah. Sarah
Yeah.
Sinon. Sarah told me that she studied at the New England Conservatory and she
Mm.
got to study, directly with Charlie. But
Oh, wow.
that's another thing I love about teaching in jazz is you get usually a system to
That's
practice,
it.
and that
Yeah.
system can last you forever. You can return
Hmm.
to it any time. You can do a little bit of it here. The guitarist Mike Stern, for those of you who know about Mike Stern,
Mm.
he I'm not sure if he's still playing, but he at the 55 bar here every I think it was Monday night or whatever for many years had a trio there, and he would
Mm.
play the same songs. It was I could tell you what they were. It was Green Dolphin
Mhm.
Street. It was Invitation. It was sort of the songs that Mike liked to play. But he played the same songs week after week after week. But each time he was bringing something from a Charlie Bernakis like one line or two line that he'd been
Yeah.
working on because these little systems keep expanding, don't they? You know,
That's right.
every key,
Yeah.
every juxtaposition, all of that kind of stuff. One day, maybe I'll share with everybody at JMI um, just some of the stuff
Yeah.
that
That'd be
just
great.
keeps
Yeah.
blowing my mind all of the time because when you come back to it, it's like because it can
Yeah.
be it's designed, it's genius, it's real genius, and it's like biology itself. It can just fan out
Does.
as
Yeah.
far as you want to take it. And if
That's
you don't
right.
want to, you don't have to. They're still
Exactly.
gems anyway, even if you just
Yeah.
touch on them. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Paula, I'm rambling a little bit about myself again. I don't mean to, but
No, that's all right. That's okay.
I think where we're sort of headed with this is about things that we do away from music.
Hmm.
When we're not playing, when you're not teaching, when you're not practicing, or whatever. What drives you personally? And I'm asking this because the most interesting jazz musicians to me are the ones that have uh, fruitful and interesting lives away from music too. Maybe we don't hear about their other pursuits and their other
Hmm.
interests, but what other interests and things in life drive you when you're not around music?
Oh,
This is my surprise question. I asked Nick
I
this
know.
recently.
This is a hard one because, I feel like 90% of my life is music. But I will tell you, behind me, the pool table. So my baby, who's 22, oh goodness, I hope he doesn't see this. I forgot his age. He moved out last year and moved out of home, and so we're empty nesters now. We're pretty sad. I mean, you spend a good chunk of your life raising children, as you're aware, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and it's almost like it never happened. And yeah, so he moved out of home, and we kind of moved the house around and moved, made his bedroom like another room, another music room. We've got two music rooms here. And anyway, so we decided we'll buy a pool table because it's something we always wanted. And it's funny, it sort of happened at the beginning of semester with the students, and I said to them, well, it's if we want to get good at something, we have to do it every day. That's just how it is. And so I made a promise to them that I would practice pool every day. I would play a game of pool every day at home. And they had to make sure they practiced every day or just touch their instruments. Sometimes the word practice can be, a dirty word for students. Best to say, just play your instrument every day. Just touch it, even if it's for 5 minutes, because you'll find once you're there for 5 minutes, that becomes 10 minutes. You fall in love with the process.
Yes.
And so that's what I do, is I play pool.
Well, that's a very worthwhile pursuit because
Yeah, and I
it's
think it's, I try to live a relatively healthy lifestyle. I go to the gym.
good.
I garden. We live in, subtropical climate, so I've got a beautiful tropical garden. Yeah, just, I don't know. But yeah, pretty much 90% of my life is music. So yeah.
But that 10% is pretty rich from what you're
That's
telling
right.
me
And
too.
I think, yeah, it's important for the rest as well, to have a rest, and playing pool doesn't have anything to do with playing music, but it's funny in a way it does, because you start learning, how can I hit that ball on this angle to get it in, So
It's
kind of think
anticipating. It's
my
like anticipating the chord changes or anticipating the
that's right.
you
That's
know
right. Yeah.
yeah
Yeah.
and
And then
and, and
by,
having to
the fact.
adapt.
Exactly. It's all about adapting. And then the good thing about having no children at home is that sometimes we can play pool very late at night. And
Yes.
we're not upsetting anyone. So yeah.
Yes. Oh,
So it's
I
adaptable with us as well.
I relate to that completely. I live in, as you can probably tell, there was, some altercation out there. That's New York horns going at
That's
any
it.
time.
That's right. Yeah.
But I love the idea of being able to stay up late, or I'm an early riser too, and, I play a flute,
Mm,
and it's a little more difficult in the city, but my little place upstate, I can be up at 6 o'clock in the morning and playing full
yeah.
volume, or it can be 2 in the morning. I'm playing sort of full volume and enjoying it. So I
That's
do
right.
I
Yeah.
relate to that very much. That freedom to not have to be quiet all the time, or
Mm,
adhere to
yeah.
the school routine, or
Yeah. Yeah.
take
I
a
love it
vacation
that,
when you want.
yeah. I love how in my household it wasn't me telling the children to be quiet. It was the children telling me to be quiet. Like, I'd be practicing on my keyboard with headphones, and they'd still come in and go, "You're too loud." I'm like, "What do you mean? I'm got headphones on. It's like, I can hear the clanking of the keys, and then you're singing along." And oh, goodness me.
Did did they pursue music at all in their time?
They did. Of course, I made them learn. I was a pretty strict mum, but they're boys. They kind of needed it. They both of them, one of them still plays, the other one doesn't, but that's okay. They both have a full appreciation for music. I would do things like, for every birthday, I bought them a new instrument. So, they had a guitar, they had an electric guitar, electric bass, drum kit, ukulele, double bass. Yeah, they got it all.
Excellent,
But yeah,
excellent
and it
directing.
was yeah. And I said to them the whole time, I said, it's just to give you an experience of playing music. So whether they pursued it or not, it didn't worry me, and I wasn't, like a helicopter parent or anything. I was strict with them, and I made them practice, and I wouldn't let them go to school until they could play D major scale correctly on the piano. And I remember one fighting with me, going, "I'm going to be late for school." I'm like, "I don't care." You can play that scale properly,
Right.
and then you can go to school. And then when the school calls me to say you were late, I'll be like, yeah, I know.
Yes. Right. You
But
know
it
that
was good
my
for
kid
them.
can play D major. I
That's
don't care
right.
about anybody else, you know.
With the proper fingering and the right
Yes.
notes. Yeah. But I think it taught them just their own self-discipline as well. So, and I think that's the value of learning music, especially through school programs, starting early, you know,
Hmm.
working with others.
Yes.
It
Very
sets
much
them up
so.
for life. Yeah.
Yes, that's such the case. I'm sorry that, and in some ways, I'm sorry that my kids never really did play music, and I certainly didn't want to push them into it. But they have enjoyed hearing me, pull it all together. And my son,
Yeah.
who's still living with us, comes with me to gigs, and he's
Yeah.
working on an investigative journalist career. So he always
Oh,
finds a
beautiful.
story wherever I go. So it's
Excellent.
he hears it all and understands it all very well. In fact, the times that I have given him piano lessons and theory lessons, he's the best student I've ever had. Interestingly
Yeah.
enough, just
Yeah.
because it comes from sort of a place of love, of loving the music and loving what I
That's
do.
right.
So,
Yeah.
well, Paula, it's been absolutely fascinating to chat
Yeah.
with you, and
Yeah. You too, Brent.
I love all of the places we went today. We
Yeah.
could do it again and just, go a completely different direction, and
That's right. Exactly.
we'll do
Yeah.
that another time for sure. But
We will. That'd be great.
thank you for taking the time on your Saturday morning to do
Yes.
this. It's my
Yeah.
Friday
Welcome.
night here, and
Friday night. That's right.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I just encourage all of you who are watching this to check out JMI, check out Paula, check out the program. It's been going for a long time, as Paula says, but it's not just been sort of tootling along. It's been growing and developing. It's constantly, just like jazz itself, it's constantly growing, changing,
That's right.
changing where it needs to change, and retaining, its history, just like jazz itself, the importance of where JMI came from, and where it's going has remained very constant. So I do encourage you. You can tell I'm a fan of the school because of the way that it's set up and the way that you are encouraged. And just a quick plug for JMI Remote, since I think that's probably what
Yes.
I'm supposed to do right now, is just
Yeah.
quick plug for the fact that you can live in Brisbane and show up and go to concerts and stuff, but you can also study remotely as well. JMI has a program called JMI Remote, which happens to, funnel to me. And I love teaching, of course, and I would hope that what I do espouses what the school has done for many years. Anyway, so that's my little plug for JMI Remote. Check it out, and
Definitely. Yeah.
feel free to spread the word about JMI to everybody you know, and
Yeah.
JMI Remote. But now you know a lot about Paula, who's the head of school, and I think it probably gives you a real insight into just the environment and just what a wonderful place it is to come and study music.
Definitely. And anyone out there listening, if you have any further questions, like feel free to contact me via email through the website. Always up for connecting with people, and especially people, musicians, or you just want to start learning music, etc. Yeah.
Great, Paula. Yes, you're
Yeah.
easy to reach, and so am I. So
Yeah.
we've gone for about an hour, but it just seemed to fly by. It
You
feel like
did.
about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I
Uh,
know.
but thank you, Paula, again. And this is the second in our little series of meet everybody. And Paula will come back to you, I'm sure, at some point. And I hope to see you in person before too long.
Yes, you will. I will be in New York in May.
Fantastic. Let
Yeah,
me
so
be let me
we'll
be
catch
your
up.
guide this time.
Yes, that'll be great. Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, Paula.
Okay. Thanks so much, Brent.
You're very welcome, and thank you. And bye for now.
See you later.
And we can wrap it right there.
Yeah.